Welcome to Ask Diz. I'm Diz, and this is the show where I answer your most pressing running questions. Let's do this. Today's question is a bit of a daily double. Two very similar questions from two separate people. Ironically, both named Katie. I don't know how that worked out. And it's not some mumbo jumbo. It really is how it shook out. I don't know how it happened. But regardless, here are the two questions we're answering today. How do I go from run walking a 5K to doing longer distances, such as a half marathon? How does one go about training for a 20-miler? Katie and Katie, thank you both for your questions. Both, again, similar vein along the lines of how do we move up and train for longer distances. And I don't mean to diminish either of your questions at all, but the answer is very simple. It's the same way that you moved up to the distances that you're currently racing. So for the Katie who asked about training for a half marathon when the current distance is like a 5K, it's kind of the same process of going from, like, I don't know if you did a couch to 5K program, but it's basically that same type of thing where you just gradually start to increase your distance. Hopefully you've got plenty of time. That's the name of the game for both of you, quite honestly. And for anybody else who's struggling with wondering how to build out the plan for the longer distance type of races that you may want to do in the future, it's all about making sure you have time to ramp up your training appropriately. And the second question there with Katie that's training for a 20-miler, I asked a little bit of kind of probing some details back and forth before we answered this particular question. And she's been doing some longer runs up to a half marathon, but never gone farther. And again, it's the same principle, whether you're going 5K to half marathon, couch to 5K, whatever progression, marathon to ultra, it doesn't matter. It's all the same progression that you just want to build up with little bite-sized chunks. I can go back to the video I did several weeks ago about the 10% rule and how much you need to be married to that rule or not. But you know, again, I kind of went with that. It's more of a guideline than a rule, but it's a guideline that would work very well for both of you, Katies. And that is that, you know, you want to increase your mileage by whatever, about 10% each week. Could be 15, could be 20, could be 5, doesn't matter. As far as the exact, you don't want to go double your mileage from one week to the next. You don't want to go from doing your long runs of being, 3 or 4 or 5 miles with total miles for the week being maybe 10 to all of a sudden throwing down 20 or 25 miles for the week. Like that's too much. That's trying to do too much too quickly. But if you're doing a couple of 2 or 3 mile runs or even run walks, it's okay. Run, walk, run, same principles apply. You're doing a couple of those during the week, and then you've got 3, 4, 5 miles on the weekend. Or you can multiply that out depending on exactly what your current level of training is. You just want to keep adding just a little bit, probably just on the weekends, at least for now. Get your weekend long runs up a little bit longer, get a little bit more time on your feet, a little bit more distance covered. And at some point you might want to think of adding another day to your training during the week. Doable if it fits for your schedule. If it doesn't, you don't have to. And maybe that's ultimately the answer for both of you guys, Katie, both of you ladies, I guess, right? Both of you ladies, Katie, and anybody else that's watching this, there's not a perfect way to do it. There's not some rigid schedule that says you have to do X number of runs during the week, X number of miles on your long run over the weekend. You gotta fit your training for the race distance into your lifestyle. And that's one of the things I'm most passionate about as a coach. It's why it's in the first chapter of my book. It's all about what's your schedule look like and how are you going to get the amount of necessary training in based on your lifestyle. So if you're going from a 5K to a half marathon, you probably want to make sure you've got 3, 4, 5 months to do so, and just start slowly but surely building up that long run distance to where you're comfortably running 10, 11, maybe even 12 miles. Not every weekend, but every couple of weekends you can do one of those good long miles or long runs. You're good to go. Likewise, Katie, if you're bumping up from a half marathon to a 20-miler, you don't have that far to climb, really. I know it seems like it's a lot. It's another, almost 50% of the distance you've already covered. So it's almost 50% of the half marathon is another 7 miles to get to a 20 miler. But it's not that crazy. You've already got hopefully a pretty good base underneath you. Give it a couple of months to build up to where you've got some 16, some 18 milers in underneath you, underneath your feet, on your legs, and you'll be good to go for 20 miles. So, for both of you, and again, for everybody else, don't overcomplicate things. Don't think that there's some exacto plan that you have to follow. It's not quite as simple as saying you just need to add some more miles in gradually over time, but it's kind of that simple as to say you just need to add some more miles over time. Now, where it's not quite as simple, that part of that equation, when you're adding more miles, either more days per week of running or extending out some of those runs that are currently on your schedule to longer mileage, you are fairly obviously, I think, creating some more wear and tear on your body. So you need to make sure you're paying pretty good attention to taking care of the little things, making sure your diet's fairly on point, making sure you're doing some foam rolling, some good recovery type of activities, some exercises, maybe mixing a little cross training, getting plenty of sleep, all those types of things. And if you're not sure about how to do any of the little things, you can check out, there's a link down below that goes to my free course on all about how to do the little things correctly and stay healthy with your training. So you can check that out. But make sure you've got some time to do those things. It doesn't mean you need to have a whole huge allotment of time. You can do them while you're watching TV. You can do it while you're doing other things in your life. A lot of them. Sleep, you kind of have to make sure you have time to sleep. But other than that, you can kind of batch some things and multitask to make it work. But you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you don't break down, so you don't suffer an injury while you're training for that first half marathon or that first 20 miler, or maybe potentially something that goes even longer than that. But building up the training, it's really pretty simple. Just add a few more miles here and there, maybe one more mile here and there, and then eventually a few more miles here and there. Slow and steady, gradual progression, and give yourself enough time, 3 months, 4 months, and you'll be good to go, both of you. So I hope that makes sense. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. It's pretty simple. Just make sure you're taking care of yourself. That's the big thing. You start adding more miles, there's more risk for wear and tear, overuse injuries. So make sure you're being proactive as opposed to reactive, because it's a lot easier to solve a problem that isn't a problem than it is to wait till it's a real serious problem and try to solve it then. So Katie, thank you for the questions. Hope that you don't mind that I combine them, but like I said, it would have been the same answer if I had done 2 separate videos, so might as well go daily double style. So thank you, ladies, for the questions. I hope it was helpful. If either of you or anybody else watching has any additional questions that you'd like me to answer, short-term, long-term, whatever, askdiz@dizruns.com is the email address. Send me your questions at any time. We'll throw them in the queue and get them up on a future episode of the Ask Diz show. So if you like the show, if you like this video, if you liked this answer, if it was helpful, give it a like, give it a subscribe, spread the word, share it on Facebook, share it wherever, social media, website, blogs, all those things are helpful, not required. Maybe throw a comment my way. Those are always appreciated as well. But I'm not going to ask for too much more than to just say thank you for watching. Give me some questions if you got some. Happy to answer them in the future. And until next time, be well. Have a great run, and we'll talk soon. See you.